Welcome to Fireside Jets. My name is Alex, my co-host here, Ryan Moran. And today we want to take a look at three breakout candidates for this Jets team going into the 2022 season. Of course, we have a lot of new rookies, a lot of new faces on this squad. We want to take a look at some guys that have been here for a year or two, maybe even four. So this is some really interesting names on this list. I had Ryan put these guys together because, these are guys that could make an impact, especially with some competition battles going on, some cornerback work, some tight end stuff. And then we have one of our, rookie guys, our rookie contract guys, Quinnen Williams, who's going to be fighting for that extension this year. So we'll kind of see how he performs this year. And maybe if he justifies it, maybe they sign him mid-season if he's playing well. We'll see how this kind of unfolds, Ryan. But before we dive into these three individual players, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, Alex. There were a lot of candidates in play here, just kind of going over the roster as a whole. And, I like the three that we ended up going with. And, I think all of them are really primed when you just look at their situations and what's around them to, really break out and, become more of a big name this season.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, we have to see growth for some of these guys. Specifically, I think Williams could play a little bit better. You wrote an article yesterday about, what a breakout season would look like for Quinnen Williams. So, you're obviously fresh off of that take and what those numbers might look like for him to really elevate his game. But I do want to start off with not Quinnen, but rather Michael Carter, the second cornerback for that Jets secondary. He's going to be fighting for some reps. They do have DJ Reed, who we did a film breakdown the other day for. They do have Sauce Gardner. So where does Michael Carter really make his money? Is he going to be a slot guy, 5'10", 184 pounds? I imagine he'll probably have some opportunities in the nickel spot. Former fifth-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft, played in 15 games last year. It's actually at 72 combined tackles, 5 passes defended. Played pretty well as a rookie, as a fifth-round pick, 22 years old. They really threw him into the fire, see if he was able to hold his own. But what are you thinking about Michael Carter and potentially being like one of those breakout players for the Jets this upcoming season?
100%. He was actually one of the easier ones for me in this conversation. Michael Carter, the second, the slot corner. The Jets drafted him in the 5th round of the 2021 draft. Obviously, it's headlined by Zach, ABT, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, the other Michael Carter. And MC2, he started in the slot really from the jump once he got with the team. And from week 1 on last year, he was a, consistent, steady contributor for the defense, whether it be in coverage, like you said, he showed some good things. He's got a ton of speed, ran a 4.3 through the draft process. And, as a run defender, for a smaller guy, he was very physical and willing in the box, made his, impact felt against the run. And just overall, I think it was a, good start. He had 5 passes defended and 15 games played. He almost played 800 snaps as a rookie, which is really telling for a 5th round pick. And, he's going to be only 23 years old this year. He has a year of familiarity in this scheme now under his belt. And you talk about Ed and Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed on the outside. That should only help MC2 in the slot this season.
Yeah, you're looking at his numbers, right? He started off his rookie campaign actually performing extraordinarily well. Kind of got a little bit more beat up down the road, especially in run defense, kind of struggled a little bit. Missed 11.4% of his tackles, but those are going to happen as a 5th round rookie. For the most part, his coverage grades were decent. He gave up almost 600 yards, only 1 touchdown. So the yardage, I'd like to see that come down a little bit. He was obviously being targeted, especially toward the end of the year, week 17 and 18 against Tampa Bay. They targeted him 9 and 8 times, and against Tampa, he gave up 8 receptions for 48 yards and a score. That was probably one of his worst games. But then, you look back at week 11 against Miami, they targeted him 10 times, had 7 receptions, gave up 58 yards. So, this is a guy who definitely shined in some performances, was picked on in others, but that's going to happen as a 5th round player. You're going to have to go through those kind of those hurdles. And they help you grow ultimately. I think Michael Carter, that nickel guy, he's going to lock it down coming out of Duke. He's a good player. I do think that if he's able to elevate his game, especially with some good outside support, with Sauce and DJ Reed, he's going to have a much easier time in the slot. I just wonder if, if you're facing off a team against Miami, for example, you play them twice a year, they're going to be moving Tyreek Hill. They're going to be moving Jalen Waddle into the slot, out of the slot. Who is he going to, does he travel with one of those guys, or is he just basically like, whoever's in the slot, that's my guy? Or are you moving DJ Reed, who's also capable of kind of moving inside a little bit? Are you asking him to follow Tyreek Hill into the slot? How do you think the Jets go about managing some of those kind of those matchups?
I think he's permanently going to be in the slot. I think you're going to see Sauce on the left. I think you're going to see DJ Reed out on the right, where he's spoken on the fact that he feels most comfortable at that position. And, I think MC2 will be in the slot. That game against the Dolphins last year, was frustrating because he was putting real mismatches pre-snap. Like he was in the slot on Mike Gesicki, a number of times in that game, and that's why it was one of his, worst games of the season. So I think, for him, it's just going to be about getting him in positions where the matchups are reasonable. Like I said, he has that blazing 4-3 speed to run with those guys, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, whoever that may be. So I think he's permanently going to, hold down that slot corner position.
Right. So let's move on to the next guy, Tyler Conklin, right? Tight end coming out of Minnesota, spent 4 years there, put together a pretty good season in 2021, almost 600 yards, 3 touchdowns, a 70% catch rate, a pretty solid player. This is a guy, the Jets do have Uzoma, they do have Jeremy Ruckert. I don't know how much he's going to really play, but he definitely is a starting caliber tight end, had his best season in 2021. So I imagine he's going to play a pretty decent part to this offense. If they're going to go with 2 tight end sets, he definitely will be involved in the running game. Do you think that he's going to make more of an impact as a run blocker or as a receiver in this Jets offense?
It's a great question. I think Tyler Conklin is going to be a multi-dimensional piece of this Jets offense. He's really complete as a receiver. He's a guy with very reliable hands. You touched on the catch rate. I mean, I think he only had 2 drops last year, on like 90 targets. He runs really good routes. He consistently gets open. I think he may end up being Zach Wilson's security blanket, like he really was for Kirk Cousins last year, just in check down situations when nothing's open down the field. I think that's where Conklin can really thrive and, get a lot of easy pitch and catches in this offense. And as a blocker in both the run and pass game, I mean, he was, productive a year ago. The running scheme is very similar to what the Vikings ran. So I think that's kind of a seamless transition. And you look at some of his things, some of his production as a pass blocker last year. I mean, whether it's Nick Bosa, Chandler Jones, I mean, this guy's really putting good reps on tape. So I think he's going to be a contributor in both ways. I mean, he was a player that a lot of Jet fans really wanted going into the process. It was exciting to end up signing him even after CJ Uzama getting both of those guys on 3-year deals. Conklin only turns 27 next month. So, you look at the production last year, 60 catches, about 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he could just be getting started. You look at his first 3 years of his career, over like 40-something games, I think he had 43 targets. And then last year, he finally gets an opportunity with about 90 and really capitalized on it. So I think the route running and the hands, just having a veteran presence like him will be very beneficial for Zach. And it wouldn't shock me if Conklin ended up being the best tight end this year for the Jets.
Well, we can hope so, right? Because the Jets have a lot of good talent at the tight end position. This is, probably one of the deeper groups in the division. I really hope that, they can do a lot of things with multiple tight ends because they have so many at this point. You have to figure out a way to get all of them involved. Pretty good pass blocker in terms of his grades. As a run blocker, also decently. This is a guy who doesn't drop the football very often. A good receiver, had his best season last year. I'd like to see him get involved. And ultimately, Tyler Conklin, this is a big body too, 6'3", 254 pounds. He can move guys at line of scrimmage. Good red zone body, get him involved there. Jeremy Ruckert, I really liked coming out of the draft. So I definitely think Jeremy Ruckert is going to push for some snaps there, especially as a blocker, very willing. And he's a good red zone target, does not drop the football. So again, really, really good tight end group. Uzoma, obviously coming off a Super Bowl appearance. It's tough to honestly determine who's going to get the majority of these reps at this point, but there's enough talent to go around, and I think it'll be like more situational usage. But the next player on the list is Quinnen Williams, right? Quinnen Williams is one of those players that's like on the fringe of a big contract, but if he can put together a really big season, he's going to get paid, right? He's last year he put together 53 combined tackles, 6 sacks, 3 passes defended over 15 games, 12 quarterback hits, and 7 tackles for a loss. So you can make the argument that he didn't do as well as 2020. He was also kind of coined as a defensive tackle last year compared to a right defensive end in 2020. So maybe a slight positional change. Still managed a ton of production. How do you see Quinnen Williams kind of performing this year? Of course, he has Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, some really great talent around him to, allow him to take advantage of those 1v1 matchups. But why do you think he's capable of having a breakout season?
For sure. I mean, MC2 and Conklin were kind of no-brainers to me. And Quinnen, there were a couple of other candidates. You have to go with him ultimately, though. I mean, this is a guy you're talking about potentially giving the biggest contract in the history of the New York Jets to, whether it be before or after the season. And, we've spoken on Quinnen has been good his 3 years with the Jets, but it's really time when you're drafted third overall and you look at all the defensive line talent in that 2019 class and the way some of those guys have broken out and really been great. Like, it's time for Quinnen, I think, to be, not Aaron Donald, but in that DeForest Buckner, Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons type of, defensive tackle group. And, I think he's 24 years old now. He's gotten experience, going into year 4, his second year in this system in particular. Last year around this time he was hurt. He had that, I think it was a foot injury, and I think that kind of hurt him in the beginning of the season. And you finally started to see him start coming to his own late September. The scheme really fits him best, as a penetrating 1-gap 3 technique, instead of all that 2-gapping. And really just the situation around him, a healthy Carl Lawson on the edge, Jermaine Johnson on the opposite edge added into the fold. And that kicks John Franklin Myers back inside, where in 2020, he and Quinnen were really good on the interior. So I think this is the year that, I love Quinnen, the person, the player. I want him to be a Jet for life. If he's going to get that big contract from the team, he's got to have a 10-sack season and really break out, be a dominant player with 50 total pressures, I think is probably a fair expectation. He has been available. I said the injury he had last year, that was in, the spring workouts. And, his 3 years, he's been pretty durable and reliable week to week. So I think this is the year for Quinnen, year 2 in the system. It's the best situation he's had around him on the defensive line. And, I think just the comfortability in the scheme in year 2 with Saleh and Ulbrich, should really lead to a breakout for Quinnen.
Yeah, I mean, look, Quinnen is one of those potential staples for as a long-term solution. You guys have the cash flow. We talked about the finances yesterday. They have about $9 million available in cap space right now and $12 million available next year, but they could take Corey Davis and cut him next year, save $10 million, and then roll that over to Quinnen Williams, right? They could pull off something like that. Like you said, he's capable as a run stopper. He's a good a good pass rusher to boot. Like, there is a lot of positives with Quinnen Williams. Like you said, he also is just a great person to have in the locker room around the organization. He's always joking around, that big smile. You can't get it out of your head. He's not going to get paid like Aaron Donald, who just signed some monstrous, like $30 million a year extension with the Rams. But he could get himself a nice little payday. I think, 10 sacks, that's a lot. But I think, he had 7 in 2020, 6 last year. He's more than capable of producing 10 sacks. It just really depends to me what position he's playing. If he's playing a defensive tackle role or more of a defensive end, you got John Franklin Myers, you got Carl Lawson, you got Jermaine Johnson. Do you actually think Jermaine Johnson is going to start immediately, or do you think like he's kind of on the fringe?
It's a great question. I think JJ will help against the run immediately. So I guess if you're counting like playing on first and second down as a starter, yes. On third down, though, I will say I think having pass rush specialists like Jacob Martin and Bryce Huff, even Michael Clemens, Vinny Curry, the Jets have a ton of edge depth right now, and those guys are really better pass rushers than run defenders. And even counting Carl Lawson into that mix, like JJ is really the one guy who's better against the run than the pass right now. So I think on first and second down, it might be him and JFM as your 2 outside guys against the run. But third down, I think there could be a rotation.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, Jermaine Johnson definitely coming in as a good run blocker, a run defender. But he does have a lot of upside as a pass rusher. He's a little bit older. I remember looking at him for the Giants out of Florida State. The guy was an absolute monster, really, really talented. I think that he could end up becoming a fantastic player. He has a lot of the raw attributes. He's powerful. He's quick. He's fast. He has good bend around the edge. I just think he needs professional coaching. So I think a season of development as a pass rusher will go a long way with Jermaine Johnson. But immediately, as you mentioned, he will be a great run stopper for you guys. And, hopefully he can really carve out a nice little chunk of reps for himself to start the year. But Quinnen Williams, I definitely could see why he'd be a breakout candidate. And so far, you have Michael Carter II, Tyler Conklin, and Quinnen Williams as your primary breakouts. 2 defensive guys and 1 offensive guy. There probably a couple more guys we could throw into the mix. I think Michael Carter, the running back, could have a monster season. I think that Elijah Moore kind of broke out last year, but I think Elijah Vera Tucker could have a huge breakout season. I think that Garrett Wilson could break out. I mean, he's definitely capable of that. Corey Davis, for what it's worth, he could even break out. Defensively, there's so many guys. I mean, there's just so much talent on that roster. I mean, Carl Lawson could have a huge resurgence season. There's so many guys to go around in terms of who you think could break out. But I'd love to hear everyone's comments below on the YouTube channel. Who do you think is going to break out on both the offense and defensive side of the football? Would love to hear your opinions as always, or if you agree with Ryan and I, Michael Carter II, Tyler Conklin, and Quinnen Williams. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.